So hello and welcome. My name is Charlie Hamer. I'm one of the co-founders of Public Sector Network. And for those of you that don't know us, we're a global community platform that has been around for almost 10 years in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the US, and the UK. Our mission is to better connect government, industry, and academia to come together to share ideas, best practice, network, and benchmark, all with the aim to driving improvements in government services and achieving better outcomes. We do this via events, via training, research, and by fostering collaboration across sectors via our online community platform. So today I'm thrilled to be joined by Katie from the Australian Psychological Services, who are leading advocates and experts on creating inclusive workplaces for neurodivergent employees. As awareness grows about the incredible strengths and perspectives that neurodivergent individuals bring to the workplace, it's clear that fostering inclusivity isn't just the right thing to do, it's essential for building more innovative and effective teams. So in today's discussion, we'll explore the challenges HR and talent leaders face in recruiting and supporting neurodivergent staff, the common mistakes to avoid, and practical steps public sector leaders can take to create environments where everyone can thrive. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's just jump straight into it. So the first section I'd like to look at is around challenges in attracting neurodivergent staff. So in your experience, what are the biggest challenges that HR and talent management leaders encounter when trying to attract neurodivergent staff in the public sector?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a fantastic question. And I think if we look at the common workplace challenges, it's really about understanding and then addressing the biases that we often have and that consistently act as that barrier for neurodivergent individuals to participate in the workforce. And we know that neurodivergent individuals in particular are, very underrepresented in the workforce. They experience much higher rates of unemployment compared to the general population. And one of those primary barriers is just simply getting their foot in the door in the first place. And I think progressing beyond that initial interview stage. So if we do think about interviews, and if we use an example of someone with autism spectrum disorder or ASD, they may struggle to make good eye contact, or they may avoid eye contact completely. This is one of those key biases. And if I think about myself as a neurotypical individual, I might interpret that as disinterest in the conversation and the process. And I might then make unfair assumptions about their social skills and extrapolating that to their ability to perform in the role. So I think being able to focus in on things like what's the content of their communication and how does this match with the actual requirements of the role that we're interviewing for, and making sure we're really aware that we're not bringing preconceived views into the conversation and, about what we're expecting from candidates, so that we're not disadvantaging people who may simply present differently to what we are used to having in interviews and things like that.
Great. You've done such a good job. You've already answered the follow-up question.
Fantastic.
So looking at creating an inclusive workplace, and so what can HR managers do to create an inclusive workplace, one in which neurodivergent staff can truly thrive?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, taking that whole of employee life cycle approach. So looking at that attraction, recruitment, all the way through to when people may be transitioning out of those roles or even leaving the organization. So there's actually a professor of organizational and industrial psychology out of the US, Professor Ludmila Preslova. She created something called the Canary Code, which is a fantastic model for creating neuro-inclusive workplaces. And she developed, as part of this model, 6 key principles to underpin that. And we can translate that across the employee life cycle to ensure that it is that neuro-inclusive workplace for neurodivergent individuals. So these 6 key principles were participation, focusing on outcomes, looking at flexibility, organizational justice, which is that fairness and equity across processes and policies, making sure we've got transparency in the way that we are doing things, and ensuring valid measurement in how we're thinking about assessing the capabilities and success in roles of neurodivergent individuals. So it's a very high level explanation of the model, but I think, she's got a website, she's got a book, really fantastic model that we can apply across the employee life cycle to really build in those points to create that good work experience for neurodivergent individuals and create that inclusivity and support others who might be working with neurodivergent individuals as well. So the Canary Code, fantastic model for supporting that.
Awesome, great bit of advice there. What are some of the common mistakes that HR managers should avoid with creating an inclusive workplace?
Yeah, I think it's this notion of making sure we don't take a one-size-fits-all approach. So there's a fantastic quote from Dr. Stephen Shaw, I believe his name is, and he said, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. So they are not a homogenous group. So just because people might have the same diagnosis doesn't mean that we can take the same approach to them. Very similar to how we would, approach neurotypical people. People are going to have different needs, different experiences, different challenges, different strengths. So I think making sure that it isn't that one size fits all approach, making sure we collaborate with the individual to really understand, well, what is it that they need, what's going to best support them, and putting them at the center of their experience is really critical.
Yeah, great. I love that. So look, advice for neurotypical leaders. What advice do you have for neurotypical leaders who manage neurodivergent team members?
Yeah, and look, we know regardless of neurodivergent team members or individuals, leaders are critical to our experience of work, no matter who we are. And I think, one of the real challenges is that a lot of leaders don't have experience with neurodivergent individuals and how to best support them. So something that struck me recently in sort of doing some further reading, as I like to do in my spare time, was this idea that when we think about how do we support neurodivergent individuals, looking to take that strengths-based approach, which often gets missed in the conversation. So we're often very focused on, well, what are the adjustments that we need to make, or what, might they do differently compared to neurotypical people, or, their ways of thinking and things like that, which tends to take quite a deficit-based approach to the whole situation. Whereas I think if we're able to recognize the immense strengths that neurodivergent people have and be able to tap into that and leverage that rather than simply coming at it from, well, this is something that has to be adjusted or done differently. I think really taking that strengths-based approach is a key piece of advice that I would suggest, because being able to harness that is fantastic. And we need that diversity across our workforce. So being able to tap into that is really critical.
Yeah, great. Completely agree as well. So finally, let's talk about the course.
Yes.
What can participants expect to learn, and how will it help them create more inclusive workplaces?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first and foremost, just a really practical understanding of what neurodivergence is, what it isn't, awareness around those common biases that I spoke about. There's sort of a lot more than just the eye contact biases that I spoke about earlier. That really hinder neurodivergent individuals' participation in the workforce and can act as those barriers. So what we can do to address those, but also the critical role that leaders do play, how they can support those team members and enhance that participation and, create that environment where everyone can thrive. So we talk through things like reasonable adjustments, how do we manage disclosures, and how do we tap into those strengths that we know that absolutely neurodivergent people bring to their roles. So really that practical support and guidance that we provide throughout the course.
Brilliant. That was a great close. So thank you so much, Katie, for sharing those incredible insights. It's clear that creating a workplace where neurodivergent employees can thrive isn't just about accommodation. It's about unlocking the full potential of a diverse and talented workforce. So I'm confident that today's conversation, this course, will inspire leaders to take meaningful steps towards inclusion. So thank you, everyone, for listening, and hope to see you the next time.
Thank you.
Awesome.